All right. Let me just turn this off so you guys can see my smiling face.
No.
Excellent.
Oh, man.
There we are. All right, here we go. Let me just track. All right, here we go. Hello, today is April 27th, 2013, and you are listening to I Think You Think, a podcast that puts a new spin on debate and discussion. I'm Justin, and on the other side of my computer screen is James.
Howdy, folks.
There you go. And we are your hosts and carry no credentials worth noting. Today, our guest is Ross. Ross is a friend of mine that we went to college together, and our first interactions were to play piano together in a duet. So,
Yes,
Ross,
they
why don't
were.
you say hi?
How's it going, folks?
All right. I Think You Think is a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. Too many times we spend debates and discussions talking past one another and not enough time trying to learn and understand why someone thinks what they think. This is what makes I Think You Think different, because we are focused on why people think the way that we do and why they think the way that they do. James and I believe the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We are not here to pass judgment, but merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Again, I haven't updated this yet, but feel free to email us. You can follow us on Facebook for future podcasts. We also have a Twitter at IThink_YouThink, a blog over at chicagonow.com/I think _you think. I think I'll have to look. And
It's
then,
actually all of that,
but all of
people.
these, there you go. Everything, and it's still going on. No, all of these links are on our Facebook, so you guys can find them there. Blah blah, and the link to the Facebook and everything else will be in the underbar of the video. I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios. And this is our second / third live broadcast. And our first in the installment of a guest a week for May to celebrate the everything going on. And James, you have a fancy new logo down there in the corner.
I do. We had someone who does some excellent graphic design work, and we got the final one last night, so I figured I would upload it today, put it up there, and show it off for all the folks.
Excellent, excellent. It looks very nice. I like it. We will get you guys details on who did it and how wonderful they are at graphic design. So if you guys are interested, you can send information and things that you want her way. Well, we're going to dive right into our topics. We got started just a tad late, but that's all right. So our first topic, which was picked by our wonderful guest, Ross. Actually, you know what? Before we dive into the topic, Ross, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and things going on in your life? Anything you feel that's pertinent for our listeners.
Well, okay. I've been listening to the podcast since it began, so I feel like that's pretty important to know. I've seen where they started and where they're going, so that's a good thing. But it's married, got a house, kid on the way, things like that. So skipping work today to do this, so that makes me feel good about myself. So
Hopefully nobody at work watches this.
no. You can rest assured they probably don't. No, but that's pretty much it. Like Justin said, I met Justin in college, and James, I know he played D&D once together, or twice, I don't remember, but yeah.
Hey, be careful. I don't know if James is actually an out D&Der, so.
Oh, well, now he is.
Now
Damn it,
Now he is. I'm
James
sorry I
exits-
outed you, James.
James exits Hangout.
Sorry
Okay,
I didn't
well-
do my hair for you guys.
It's all right. I always just
I
pull my
thought you
back.
did. Why do you think I'm wearing the hat? I closed my restaurant
Exactly.
last night. I didn't get home till after 1 in the morning, so still kind of early for me today.
It is kind of early. This is a little different for us. This is actually the first, other than the like pre-recorded ones that we've done, where it's like before noon. And sorry to push back the topic again, but I missed a bunch of things on our last show that I meant to say, like that it was Earth Day and that that was a good thing, and go out and plant a tree or something. So I missed
Too
Earth
late
Day.
now.
I know, right? You guys
have to wait.
You can still. There's nothing stopping you from planting a tree. You guys can go still plant a tree. You
Now
don't
have to wait
do
for
it on
Arbor
Earth
Day. You have to wait till Arbor Day comes around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only 2 days a year you can plant a tree, Justin, and you totally missed getting our 14 watchers and listeners to plant those trees.
The other thing was Star Trek, the video game, came out on Tuesday. My wife pre-ordered it. She was really excited. She's a very big Star Trek fan. She is actually one of our guests to review the Star Trek movie that comes out in May, and so we picked that up. And I will probably give you guys a short kind of thing on it, a review on it, upcoming soon. Maybe we might wait until after May, but I don't think the review will take too long, so that doesn't bode well.
Yeah, I got like a one-line review. From Justin via Facebook, and it wasn't 5 stars. That's not what I got.
This game is short.
It was not. And, I've been thinking, James, I think that the way that we ought to review games, instead of like on a 10-point scale, do it on like a 6-point scale, and it's based on how much the game is worth. Like if it's worth for somebody
10,
to buy
20,
for
30, 40, 50, 60.
Exactly. Or 60 plus. Like if it's worth it to get the expanded, like special edition, whatever, that you're going to get for it.
Like
Yeah.
Skyrim would be a 60 plus.
Yes,
Absolutely.
you should get 60. You should. It's worth buying for $60, and then you should get any of the additional kind of downloadable content for it. The game is not broken without it or anything, but it makes the game intensely more great. Yeah, 60 plus.
Well, thank you all for joining us for our 21st podcast. That's all the time we have today.
That's it. Thank you for joining us. We will see you guys next week.
Great being on, guys. Great being on.
Now that we've burned up the first 10 minutes, let's actually get into the topics. The first topic, as we had mentioned, that Ross had suggested, is drug testing for welfare recipients. So I've got my own kind of views on it. James, I'm sure, has his as well. But we're going to start off with our guests. Ross, go ahead and kind of fill us in on what it is and your position and any kind of information you have.
Well, as you guys know, Florida has recently passed the law. As many of you have probably seen on Facebook, you see the pictures of the cars on the interstate leaving Florida, which means they're all coming north. But the law essentially says that you have to pass a drug test in order to stay on welfare. Now, I was doing some research, and I believe you have 3 chances. If you fail the first one, you cannot get welfare for 6 months. The second one, you are off of it for 3 years. And if you fail the third one, you can no longer get welfare at all. Now, that presents 2 problems.
That's the law that's been passed? I'm sorry.
Yes, that's the law that has been passed in Florida.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That presents 2 problems. First of all, I by no means am a person who believes that welfare should not be handed out to people. I am in favor of it, but I am not in favor of the people who are abusing welfare. And I think this law is put into effect to help keep that to a minimum. Now, I could be wrong on that, but that's the way I see it. And I think that the first problem is that you are going to be taking money, welfare, food stamps, things away from families who really need it. But on the flip side of that, if they can't pass a drug test to actually provide for their family, then how sincere are they about caring for their family? And the second part of that is that I think it's just another law. It's going to be another way for the government to track people, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it kind of seems like that. You know, and one of the questions I have is who's going to pay for the drug tests? Well, I think that's covered in the law actually. The people actually have to pay for the drug test first. If they pass it, then they get a voucher and they get the money replaced. If they fail it, then they've paid for the drug test. I don't think this takes effect till 2015. So it's going to take a couple years for all the bugs to get worked out of the system. But I definitely think that in a couple years we're going to see a lot. We're going to see a little bit more pushback to the law, and that it's the first state of 49 in our union, and I think it's a good law. I think that stuff like that should be passed. Like some of you have probably seen, it says, if I have to pass a drug test to pay for your welfare, then you should have to pass the drug test to get your welfare. And I believe in that. I mean, if you can't pass a simple drug test, then how sincere are you about caring for your family?
And what you mean by passing a drug test to pay for your welfare, you mean passing a drug test because most companies require a drug test during the time when you're hired, and sometimes even while you're hired?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't start until 2015, you said. So it's possible that it's something that could be challenged in the courts, I would assume.
Yeah.
Between now and then. James, you got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels like a completely reasonable law. I mean, there's no reason why people who are going to be collecting welfare can't be drug tested. I mean, it's not like it's just illegal drugs anyways. So
I was going to ask. I'm sorry to cut you. I was going to ask if there was like any kind of drugs or what kind of drugs if it went into it.
Oh, from what I've read, I'm pretty sure it's all illegal drugs, but I think they're also going to be testing for like prescription narcotics and stuff. And unless you have that prescription, then that's going to be something that is going to come up in that screening. So it's not going to be like the simple, marijuana test that you usually get with jobs. It's going to be I think it's a little bit more involved from what I'm reading. So it's not just the marijuana. It's going to be, cocaine, opiates, anything that could be considered illegal.
Okay.
Whether you don't have a prescription for it or not.
I would predict that if the law goes into effect, that the sale of niacin would probably increase in Florida. Not the flush-free kind.
Oh, to help pass the drug test? Actually, my wife's a nutritionist, so she gets this all the time. And she works at a store that they come in for this stuff. So the great news is, if they take that stuff, drug tests nowadays can actually...
will test for niacin. Yeah.
Well, not only that, but if your urine is, too clear or too, there's not enough actual urine in it, and it looks like you've been just drinking water, you can actually fail the drug test that way because it looks like you've been trying to tamper with the drug test. So.
And you know what? We cut off James and went off on a little tangent here. So I'm sorry, James. Go ahead. Back to what you were saying.
No. It's fine. I mean, like Ross, I believe, welfare is there for a reason, and there are people that actually need that, and there's a lot of services like around that are important. There are people that are actually trying to provide for their family that aren't able. But if somebody's going to, be on welfare and then, spend, all that time doing drugs, whatever. I mean, not to spend 24/7 doing drugs, but they're going to do it, and then they can't even. Actually, quick question, Ross. Do you know? Are they going to know ahead of time exactly when they're going to be tested?
I didn't read anything about that. Like, I'm assuming, because like with the way, I don't know how Florida's works, but in Illinois, like you have to go in, and you have an interview to get your welfare. So what I'm assuming it's going to be for people that aren't on it and that want to sign up starting in 2015. So I'm assuming most of these people are going to be grandfathered in, just because that's the way our Constitution works. If they pass a law like that, then anybody who's done this before and who's on it before gets grandfathered in. It's probably going to be...
Sorry, do you know if they're going to be doing random drug testing after people are on welfare, or is it just an initial drug test when you go to apply for welfare?
I'm not sure about that. What I think is going to end up happening from the way in the stuff that I was reading is that you're going to have to check in with your actual welfare counselor once or twice a year.
Okay.
In Illinois, you don't have to do that. Once you're on it, you have it for 2 years, and the only thing that you have to do is show that you're actively looking for a job. Well, I mean,
it depends on the welfare.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I was going to say, as somebody who took not advantage, but
utilized.
Utilized. Thank you. Utilized the welfare system before I got the job that I currently have, that I've had for 6 years. Actually, 6 years and a couple of days. April 30th is my anniversary. We were on the WIC program. Well, technically, my wife and our unborn son, the eldest right now, and then after he was born, was on WIC, which is Women, Infants, and Children. That's the program in which you receive check vouchers for milk, eggs, cereal, bread, cheese, things like that. Only for those things. And then we were also, on food stamps, which they're not stamps anymore. They're, cards. We were on those, I don't know, probably for 8 to 10 months to a year, before I got the job that I have now, and then we got off of those. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't any check-in process other than like the 4 hours that you spend at the place the first time, and then a training class that you have to go to on how to use your Link card. That's what Illinois calls it, is Link. LINK. Actually, I think they just changed it to SNAP, supplemental nutrition.
It's a SNAP benefits.
Something like that. Other than that, there really wasn't a check-in process, except after the year we were supposed to re-meet with our counselor. But it's always very difficult to get a hold of your counselors because most social workers are really overburdened.
Well, it sounds to me like these situations, they would know in advance, too, when they're going to meet with their counselor or whatever it is. So that means they're going to have advance notice of when they'd be taking the test as well. And if you still can't pass it, if you know in a month that you're going to have to pee in a cup and you can't stop for that month, then you deserve to lose your benefits. You know what I mean? It's like anything. Like if I'm applying for a job and I smoke pot, and I'm applying for, like, I'm looking for a new job, and I'm a pot smoker. If I can't manage to stop smoking pot for the time I'm looking for the job, I don't deserve to get that job. You know what I mean? Because you're just not being responsible around it. And if they can't even, not to say that it's okay that they're doing it and now they can control and stop it, for that period of time, but if they can't even reach that level where they stop for 2 weeks, a month, or whatever it is to pass the test, then they have, obvious issues that they're not helping themselves in that situation, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm going to be a voice of dissent here between the two of you because I do not agree with this law. But before I go into the specifics on why I don't agree with the law, I kind of want to address the part about the testing. If they're just testing for illegal drugs, that's one thing. If they're testing for prescription drugs and let's say opiates or something, and then Ross, you would mention. Now, obviously, Ross, I know that you're not the foremost expert on this, so we don't know whether or not this is the case. But if the drug test is testing for, C2s, C3s, something like that, and they find that it has it, either they can't test for it and it's not important and it doesn't affect whether or not they can test for it, but it doesn't affect whether or not you receive the benefits, or if they are saying that you could potentially not receive those benefits if you can't prove that you have a prescription for it, to a certain extent, I almost see that as an invasion of medical privacy. What somebody's health care is should be between them and their doctor, and then any health professionals that they need to share that with. And to me, receiving welfare benefits and things like that doesn't seem like something that medical information needs to be given out for.
But if I can intervene here really quick, it's not like the social service workers in the office are going to be conducting the drug test. It will be a medical facility of some sort. So that communication could be kept within the medical community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
right.
So,
you can't share medical information. If I go see one doctor, let's see my regular doctor, and then I want to go see a specialist. If that specialist wants any information that I get that my medical doctor has, I actually have to sign a release form for my specialist so that they can request that information. Just because they're a medical facility, they don't just share that kind of information.
I know, but if you want to get need welfare, what problem would you have with this doctor and that doctor sharing information?
Medical testing facilities wouldn't necessarily have doctors at it, but
they always ask you when you go to take these tests. They always ask you what medications are you on. You know, that way when the test does come up and they say, yeah, I'm on this medication, then if they find that, then they're like, okay, well, they said they're on this.
Right.
And
Fair enough.
and maybe it's not necessarily something where they're going to ask for the prescription.
Yeah,
but, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are going to be dumb enough to say, I'm not on anything, go take this test, and then they're going to taste positive for, Vicodin and oxycodone and all these other drugs, and they're going to be like, what? I told you I was on it.
I guess I feel like if that came back, I would say, oh yeah, I hurt my back last week, and I was just taking it for the last week from my doctor or whatever. And then but either way, I mean, yeah. So then back onto the why I'm not in favor of this law. Yes. Okay. So I think that the error in the thinking about this law is, James, let's say you lose your job, you need to get onto some social program, and you can't find work, whatever, and you want to go off and get onto these programs. I think that the error in thinking is that every person who's on the social program, and any person who's receiving food stamps or unemployment or something like that, that they're the only person who's affected by whether or not they're on that program. And what I mean is, let's say there's a mother out there. Let's even say that this mother has a drug problem. Let's say that she smokes marijuana or whatever, but she has children that live in the home with her that are beneficiaries of the benefit program that they have.
Mm-hmm.
By saying that she has to pass this drug test, or she is not allowed to get these benefits for 3 months or 3 years or never ever again, you're also saying that because the mother of these children has to pass this drug test, if she fails it, that automatically means that the children are not allowed to have access to these benefits.
Well, there's a couple different parts to that. So
okay.
I just want to... the other thing that they said is that if you were to fail and your family needs the benefits go to a third party. Now, what that means is maybe it doesn't go to the mom, maybe it goes to her parents, maybe it goes to a different legal guardian, maybe it goes to, another family member who can then use these food stamps to purchase the food for the family.
Does it happen to say whether or not, like, for example, let's say my brother lived nearby and he was on a program, and I'm employed enough that I wouldn't be accepted into any of the social programs, which is the case. If my brother, the sole parent of his children, which is also isn't the case, he fails a drug test, which I would be surprised that he failed a drug test, that he was even on drugs. And then I was the one who would receive as a third party. Would they say, well, I'm sorry, you, or is it more this person gets to manage it for this other family, or do you know?
I'm not sure, like, I'm not exactly sure what they're doing for that. Like,
okay.
That's the one thing
okay.
it wasn't specific on. So I was like, I don't know how I feel about that part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, unless we probably get the law out and actually read it, and then have somebody who knows how to interpret how to read law, I don't know if we'd actually get it. The information.
I think it's a huge and valid point though, because there are those, especially the children, which is.
Did you say invalid or valid?
Valid.
Oh, okay. I was like, invalid. Wow. Okay. Just cut me off, James.
Ignore it.
I hate children as a general rule. No, no, because I mean, those kids. You're right. I mean, if there's a parent who can't manage to, keep their life together in whatever way, and drugs and welfare are a part of it, and isn't willing to make, those steps to, pass those drug tests, and then the kids are being affected by it. It's a hugely valid point, and I think the third party is it's a way, but it's not perfect by any stretch.
No.
Now, the same scenario you had, Justin. What if you are not to be trusted? Just because you have a job doesn't mean that you're, a good and reliable person.
Right.
Maybe you just take that SNAP card or whatever it is, and you just keep it for yourself. You know, forget my brother, forget his children. I don't care. Free food. Free money.
Or even just give the SNAP card back to the person who it was originally for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it's someone generally close, that's a potential problem. But what about the other possibility that what if I'm not interested? Like, maybe they're close to me, but I don't want to be involved in trying to manage another family's health needs or their food needs. Or do I then have to go grocery shopping for them every week because I'm the only one who can use the SNAP card? If I just say to my brother, oh, hey, whatever, here's the SNAP card, this is the PIN number, just get what you need, and then they use the SNAP card in the wrong way, because there are ways that you can use it not well, like by buying stuff and then selling those things you purchased for cash to other people.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
And again, I mean, we don't know specifically what the options are, but that's one of the reasons why I don't. There's not favoring laws because they don't fix the whole problem, and I don't necessarily stand behind that. Sometimes you need to do laws that make steps in the right direction, but I don't even think that this law really makes any step in the right direction at all. First of all, you guys have heard me say this before. I'm a socialist. I think social programs are great. I think that they are the way to kind of move societies in positive directions, is to help take care of those who can't or are unable to take care of themselves through whatever means we can provide, money, funding, whatever we can do. And so for me, welfare programs like that are good programs. I accept completely that there are things wrong with those programs. There are things that there are people who are unscrupulous, who use the programs incorrectly. But I think in general, the amount of people who use it incorrectly is much lower than the amount of people who use it correctly and use it for things that are important. And I think drastically changing a system that is useful on a majority just because of a small minority that's making it bad isn't the answer to fixing that problem.
Here's the other thing I thought about as you were talking about it. I didn't read anything about this, but I think one of the reasons why they're going to do something like this is to also help those people who are having troubles. So if you are, if you do take the drug testing, you do fail it. Obviously, they're going to require you to do some kind of counseling, help you maybe figure out what's going on in your life and why you're doing these certain things. And
now that's something I could definitely support. Where not that you lose your benefits, but that it gives people an opportunity to actually talk about the problem and maybe try to help solve that. But then you get kind of into the hairy sort of
I think we're losing Justin
liberty
here a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I start leaning back, and then my microphone stops picking me up. It's kind of like when how much of an invasion of their liberty is it that we say, well, maybe an option would be, okay, you get to keep the benefits provided that you start attending these drug abuse classes or something to that effect. But if they don't show up, then you don't really want to take the benefits away because of the original issue that I had said with kids.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not a cut and dry black and white issue by any stretch of the imagination.
No, all of the issues we talk about, James, are black and white,
okay.
Cut and dry. We solved that.
I think I'm in the wrong hangout. Hold on one second. But
I think you're wrong, James.
I think for me, the bottom line is when there are people out there that are abusing the system, I would want to try to end that some way. Is this law? I mean, obviously, we don't even have all the details in this law, so it's hard to speak to it really specifically. But in the way we are speaking about it, it doesn't sound like this law is perfect. I think if maybe, from what you were just saying, if they added another step ahead of time, like the first time you fail it, they don't take the benefits away, but there is some sort of course of counseling, which would have to be very flexible because, I mean, someone who's legitimately looking for a job, someone who's got a family they're taking care of, it's not like they can definitely do, every Tuesday at 4:30. You know what I mean? It's not realistic.
Right. Yeah.
So there'd have to be a lot of available options for that. But I think for people, like there was, this is kind of off topic, but there was a rapper in Wu-Tang Clan who would laugh about the fact that he would still go collect his welfare checks.
Yeah.
And he was in. I mean, he had money. He had a lot of money.
The IRS caught up to him, though, didn't he?
I don't know. I mean, he's passed away since, so I'm not sure. Well, I'm sure because it was like on MTV, so I'm sure they saw it and they're like, let's see if we can figure this out and make him stop doing that.
Yeah.
But it just shows that there are people, that can abuse the system, and trying to limit that, because the more resources people take away in an abusive way, the less there is for those that really need it.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody asked me, well, how would I fix the system? I think one of the ways is if we could get more people into the social care system, like working in, not like people using, but more people working in the social care system. I think that would help. Now, you either have to give incentives to people to work within that system, which would be hard to do because the system is already incredibly overtaxed. Not like as in tax, but it's overworked and doesn't have a lot of money in it. One of the things that I've heard, I kind of support, I kind of like this, is make an aspect of college or even an ability to pay back your federal student loans where you can work in the social care industry for 2 years or 3 years. And if you do that, then your federal student loans are forgiven, or something to that effect, in which then you have multitudes of people just out of college who are going into the social care system and probably working at very entry-level jobs, not doing the stuff that people necessarily don't want to do. And then you might even find some people who they got their degree in, I don't know, art design or something, and then they work in social care for 2 years or 3 years and go, this is this is actually kind of where I want to be. I'd rather do this. Or there'll be the people who work for 2 or 3 years and say, you know what, this isn't for me, but at least I got my student loans paid off.
But then you kind of run into the issue that you have now where your social workers are overworked, and I think I read an article one time where like social workers work on average for about 3 years and then they get burnt out and stop. So
I think that would be fixed with the fact that if you've got 1 million, I don't know what the numbers would actually be, but if you've got a large portion of mid 20 something year olds going into this system to work it and then leaving after 2 or 3 years, you would have more people. You could spread out the work and you wouldn't have as much burnout.
But I think there's going to be, if you do something like that, you're going to have a lot more people fall through the cracks because, okay, my 2 years are up. Here, you're having all my case files now, and then you're like,
well, you would pass it on to the next person who's coming in, basically. But you would still have the people who stick with the program, who stay within the system. My daughter is coming to say hello. Who stick within the system and want to be part of it. And yay, all of our views just went up.
New co-host. Hello.
Yep. There would be people who would stay in the system in supervisory roles who would kind of work with those people who were coming in for only the 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's off topic. But
it is. And James, do you want to hit anything before we move on to the next one?
The only thing I'd say about that thought is you'd be injecting people into the system that maybe wouldn't care. They would be doing it only for a couple years, and I know I've had a couple of workers that have worked in the social care system, and it can be brutal. It can be really rough. I mean, you spend time looking into and trying to help people that are in the hardest of situations, and it's not something you want to put somebody into who's not interested in that on some level, I don't think. Because it can be really, really difficult for those that do want to do that for a living, to actually look into the heart of that, that some of the roughest lives that are going on in our country, like where there's physical abuse and mental abuse and just that poverty and drug abuse and all these horrible things that are in these households, that are the areas of social service they need the most help. Everyone wants to help, the adorable children that need to be adopted, or the hardworking family that just needs some help. That's the TV or movie image of being, a social service person. But dealing with, the family that's got abuse, that doesn't want any help, that doesn't want you there, that is a burden that not just anybody can go into and really deal with it, with like I don't even know how to put it, like really go about it in a way that it needs to be addressed, with all the focus that needs to be put into that to try to help that family get that good result, to help them move forward. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, though, need more people, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a double-edged sword when you get those people in there. The more bodies is fantastic, but at the same time, it's a very difficult situation. It's like you wouldn't want someone who doesn't know how to work on cars or want to work on your car changing your brakes,
Sure. And probably the way I would, if I was fixing it today, and trying to address all the issues, what I would probably say is the cases that are more sensitive, that require people with more experience, would be saved more for the supervisors. Kind of like, yes, in our chat, they're recommending me as president. I am over 30 now, so you can actually write in my name. Justin on I Think You Think. Anyway, it's to kind of go to your metaphor of somebody working on your car. The people who would be coming into the system would be the ones who are changing the oil, something you can teach them relatively easy to do. But someone to change a transmission in the car would be someone who's got more experience People who normally would supervise the people changing the oil and rotating tires and the day-to-day stuff, and the supervisors would be around to do the much more difficult things.
Well, I think if anything, we've realized that neither of these topics are simple fixes. So again, we're spending an hour and we're not fixing anything.
But we're talking about it, so maybe somebody who's coming up will go, that's a great idea.
It's true.
I'm going to fix it.
It's true. You know,
but we
all
just
you can do is
fixed it.
talk about the ideas. We did?
Yeah, we just voted Justin as president, right? And he just changed it? He just fixed it?
I do not second that vote.
All right, we are into the second half of the hour, much into it, so we're going to move on to our next topic, which I would imagine I'm not going to have much to say on because it has to do with sports, and you guys are sports heads, so James,
actually, I'll be right back. I have to move my car. I apologize. I'll be back.
Oh, okay.
2
Then
minutes. Ross, start us off.
Ross and I will take it. So the second topic has to do with sports and overpaid.
Hooray!
Yeah, woohoo! That's me waving the flag, for whatever team.
That Rhiannon.
Oh no, that was an American flag. Just because she's fixated on like pencils and things like that. She will find them and carries them around with her everywhere.
Long, slender things.
Yes. Anyway, so
Wow.
overpaid athletes, sports and overpaid athletes. My thought has always been that I guess I'm not a big sports person. I don't like playing sports that much. I'm not super active. I'd rather sit down in front of a computer game. I don't even play sports computer games because they are boring to me.
You played rec basketball in college, though.
I did play. Well, yes. Let me get this. Let me explain
in the loose
this.
sense of I was there.
We had a intramural basketball team for our choir that Ross and I played on. It wasn't like college basketball, people. Okay, so
Sorry about that.
It's all right. You haven't missed much because we haven't even got into the topic. Ross is just accusing me of playing college basketball, which technically I did, even though I didn't. It was an intramural league. It was not like college basketball.
Someone
Anyway.
has to sit on the bench, Justin. It's a very important part of being the team.
No, actually, I think Ross and I were out on the court most of the time.
Yeah, we played almost all
There were
18
like
minutes.
6 of us, so
18-minute games? Oh, man.
Well, you got to remember, this is intramurals, and most of the people that were playing were out of shape, overweight, kind of like, hey, this sounds like fun. There's a trophy at the end. Let's play it.
I think I had 3 heart attacks that year.
Well, I remember Aaron and I both kind of tore our ACLs the same year, so that's...
You did,
yeah.
in fact.
Yes, we did, so that was great.
Anyway, sports and overpaid athletes, you two take it away. I'll stand here and watch.
Well, I'll start this one off. I mean, for me, yes, it can seem like athletes are extremely overpaid, but the fact of the matter is that baseball, football, hockey, and basketball all make a lot of money. So where does that money go? I mean, does it go to the athletes? Does it go to the owners? I mean, it seems like the athletes are out there, risking their physical health more. So I would say overall, I mean, they should be making the lion's share of the money. You know what I mean? But, I mean, when people make $30 million a year, it's hard to really even relate to that, like to play a game. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on it, Ross?
Well, I think that, if you look at that list, you just go to Forbes and look at the list of people, you're going to find that actually a lot of those people that are getting paid that kind of money are people who are doing individual sports. So you got golf, you got boxing, you got, tennis, you got racing. So, what I find ironic is that the team sports aren't the ones that are playing, that are paying out the most. Now, you take into consideration that almost half of an athlete's income is always endorsements, and I think that makes it even more ridiculous. Like, sure, I want to work every third night. I will work once a week and pay me $17 million every other week to work 2 days during that period, But
Well, I mean, at least in golf, they have to win a tournament. I don't know where the money comes from for these tournaments, though. It's got to be
Advertisers.
Yeah, it has to be.
no, you get advertisers.
Golf certainly is advertisers. I grew up in Akron, down the street from Firestone Golf Course, one of the biggest. That's a huge golf course on the that whatever golf tour that they do.
PGA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just know that there's a whole bunch of cars in town, every year at around the same time.
No, yeah, but golf you don't have to win. Golf you could finish as long as you make the cut all 4 days, you get a paycheck. And even if you don't, as long as you've entered that tournament, you at least get your entry fee back. Because every time you enter a tournament in golf, you have to pay. I think it's, for the Masters, it's like $100,000 or something like that. Unless you win a qualifier. If you win the qualifier, then you're in automatically. But if not, then you have to pay $100,000.
Chump change.
Well, yeah, in the long range, like if you win it, you're getting like $6 million. So it is. You're paying $100,000 for $6 million. What kind of return is that? I'll take that any day.
Figure it out.
I mean, and it's to play a sport that I don't know. Do you play golf, James?
Not really. No. I mean, I play it. Right, I've played Firestone in my my Xbox though. Nice little course.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, golf is one of those sports that I will go and play maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
I have golf clubs. I do have golf clubs. I do. I do.
You have golf clubs.
I have golfed a couple of times. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you do sports. You just didn't realize it. I mean, but golf is one of those things that I do for enjoyment. Just as kind of like a stress reliever if I need to just get out and do something. I'm not very good at it. If you go to golf courses, you're going to see those people who get pissed off about, hitting a shot into the woods. And, my thought is, oh, well, I get to go into the woods and try and hit it out, So I don't get frustrated at sports. What I do get frustrated is, I think my big thing about athletes getting paid is, let's take Derrick Rose, for example, because we've been talking about the Bulls. He's been sitting on their bench all year with an ACL injury. I had that exact same injury, and I was back to work in a month. So, obviously, it's a different kind of work. I get that.
Okay.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. No, I understand that. But, I didn't get paid to sit on my ass,
Well, if you had disability and you would have done it, and you did it at work, you would have gotten paid for it.
No, I got 2 weeks worth of pay because I had vacation, sick time, and I had, everything like that. But my thought is that, that's great if you want to give these athletes those contracts, but not only are they already paying for them to sit there and rehab, they're also paying all of those doctor bills. They're the surgeons of the team, so the team is paying for these bills on top of having these athletes just sit there, and not be any good to the team. And I think some athletes get way overpaid for some sports that they do. I don't know if you just saw the Aaron Rodgers, $110 million for 6 years. That's $20 million a year. Now, granted, football, you are getting the crap beat out of you every day you go out there onto the field. So I don't disagree, but $20 million? Really? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the money comes from our interest, not us, just the 3 of us, because that would be amazing. But
considering one of them doesn't watch sports,
but general, the public's interest, and how much that is. And football is one of the biggest as far as it comes. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could be dead center between the Super Bowl ending and preseason starting, and they still talk about football on sports radio like it's happening that day.
Yep.
The public interest is there. Since the public interest is there, these endorsements are possible, and all these other income streams that they have. Whether it's just the advertisements during the games, they can charge so much more because it's Green Bay versus the Bears. It's they can make a lot of money on the advertisements and all these other things. It comes from the public's interest and the money they're spending. So it's basically we are paying these athletes by, you know, watching the games, attending the games, buying jerseys, buying Gatorade instead of Powerade because that's what Derrick Rose drinks. You know, whatever it is, buying their shoes, all the different things that go into it. So it's hard to argue it. I mean, for me, basketball is the only sport that I really, really follow. So I see the games, I watch all the commercials, and by the end of the season, it drives me crazy because it's the same like 5 commercials for the entire year. You know,
Bring
own a
back
couple
the Larry
jerseys.
Bird McDonald commercials.
You know,
Over the hoop, through the arches, into the...
yeah, off that skyscraper, nothing but net. But yeah, I mean, it's our interest, so it's hard to argue it too much because I do have a passion for the sport. Like Justin is the only one here who I think could really like argue the point like that's ridiculous because he's not a fan of the sports. You know, I know Ross, you are as well. I mean, last time we did the podcast, we were both kind of watching the Bulls game as much as we could, and you know, like we're both passionate about it. So it is. I mean, you know, I put in whatever money I put in. You know, they get a little bit from my cable bill. They get a little bit from this.
Yep.
The hope that I'm going to buy the things they advertise. My problem is, like, if we're going to stick with the Bulls, I understand with the Rose thing, although I think we're biding our time for the duration of his contract. You know, we'd rather have him be healthy going into next year because he gives us a good chance of winning championships, which is more money for the organization. And
But I mean, what if they win it this year without him? That's the thing. Is like,
that
you know,
would be awesome.
Well, I know, right? But you know, all joking aside, it's, you know, I think what has escalated sports to the, well, before I get started, you know that soccer, which is, you know, football for people in Europe, is actually the number one money-making sport in the world. It's not baseball, It's not football. And they have, you know, they have the most fans. They have, you know, it's the most popular sport around the world. But anyway, I think what has escalated, you know, this kind of money for athletes, I think what has escalated it, ironically enough, is the fantasy sports. So it's the sports that, you know, fantasy sports teams that, James, I'm sure you have a fantasy baseball team and a fantasy, no?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Not baseball.
Well,
no. Do you have is there fantasy basketball?
There is. It's the only one that I would be able to, but I've considered it and I've looked into it, but I've never actually gotten into a league. But it's the only one I know the players well enough to have any skill at picking a team.
Well, I'm a fantasy sports junkie. I do fantasy racing, fantasy golf, fantasy hockey, fantasy basketball. I do them all.
I do fantasy.
And usually, is that called anime at some point?
Oh no, I was thinking just D&D.
Oh, okay, all right. No, but you know, I do the fantasy sports, and I think I feel like that has enhanced the players' like persona. Like I think when, you know, Maurice Jones-Drew last year was being taken, you know, in the first round of drafts, and the year before that he was number 1 on everyone's list. And I think when you get to that kind of like talent, then you look at that and you say, okay, well, I'm being picked first in every fantasy league. I feel like I should be making this amount of money. And I don't know that that's his main reference, but like if you think about it, like he's sitting there saying, well, look, everybody wants me to play on their fantasy team, so why do I not want to get paid to play the game that I'm playing?
Right.
And I feel like, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's probably another batch of revenue stream as well because that's all interconnected, you know, to some degree. Like the money that's going to come in from all these sites that do fantasy league. I know I watch NBA TV. They have a show specifically about the fantasy teams. Mm-hmm. You know, I notice a lot of those either on talk radio and on the different specific sports channels, and ESPN's got all their fantasy leagues.
Oh, yeah.
So it's more money coming into the same industry. But you're right. It is also more attention and focus on, you know, certain individuals, you know, that, and I would guess it's probably the agents that are like, you know, you're getting picked, no, like you're the number 1 fantasy pick right now. We should go for, you know, whatever. We should go for $1 billion over 2 years. You know, but again, I mean, again, it's our interest in the sports that generates. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. I think it's right when you talk about Joakim Noah, because Joakim Noah got his contract, And every day he goes out on that court, you can see him wanting to earn it. And I got no problem with whatever, like $60 million, whatever he got. Because in the playoffs last year, he like went full sideways on his ankle. If you can probably look it up and find it on YouTube.
I've seen it.
Yeah, he went all the way over, and he tried to go back into that game 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay, I would be crying. I'd be crying. I think we'd all be crying. Like most people in that situation, there'd be no way that they would try to go back into a game, no matter even just walk on it. But 3 times he tried to go back into that game because he's getting paid, and he recognizes that he's been recognized by the organization and wants to make sure he's earning that every day. And I think when you see that, that feels good. You're like, okay, he's earning the money. You're never going to fault him for what he does because he goes out there every day, tries to earn it. But there's other, over-the-top athletes that they get these contracts and, just the attitude they have towards their fans or their work ethic. And I wouldn't put Rose in this category specifically, although it is frustrating to not have him out on the floor being a Bulls fan. But more like the TO type personalities, these like over the top people that, I don't even know how to describe him. I don't know. If you don't know, I don't think I could ever explain it to you.
Flamboyant is a pretty decent word.
Right, like the diva mentality, like they feel like they got paid
Dennis
and they earned
Rodman.
something. Everybody
knows who that is.
But at least he was a hard worker. He was a hard worker, He never stopped going. But people that get paid and then don't work as hard, especially that kind of money, I think that's really frustrating to the people that need to go into work, 50, 60 hours a week to pay their bills. When this person's getting paid enough to pay all of our bills and not even kind of notice, you know what I mean? And they're not willing to put in the work.
All right, I'm gonna just cut in here for a second because there's two things that I want to hit real quick regarding this. One,
what are sports? No.
Yeah, what's sports? Basketball's the one with the white ball and the laces, right? People have gloves. No. Anyway, for a lot of this team sports, basketball, baseball, football, soccer. I think that we fixate on a lot of the starters, the people who get paid a lot, but there's a lot of second and third stringers who also get paid to do what they do and don't get paid very much. If you made like a line graph, a bell curve based on the amount of people and what the average pay is, my guess is that it would actually skew really, really low with a few outliers that get paid a lot. I think when we think of professional sports, we think of lots of overpaid athletes, but in general, there's a huge chunk of people who only are there for practices, show up for the games, but don't ever actually do any playing, and probably, obviously, don't get paid nearly as much as the frontline people.
Yeah, but I mean, still, they're making what, $500,000 to sit on a bench?
I don't know specifically. I remember in my freshman level statistics class where we plotted it out, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be really high. Everybody makes lots of money," and it was actually the reverse. The bell curve is way skewed the other direction.
Well, it's a matter of perspective because yes, the variance between like the base, like I think basketball is like basically somewhere around $250,000 is minimum.
Yeah.
And you have 15 players per team, and the difference between that and making $27 million a year is gigantic. But getting paid like $250,000 a year to basically play a game, that's 5 times, like a reasonable, like middle class salary of $50K. You know what I mean?
15,000 is not a reasonable middle class salary.
He said 50.
Oh, 50. I thought he said 15. I was like, that's a terrible read.
And we're going back to our last topic of drug testing on welfare, and you wonder why.
Well, the second little thing I want to hit, because we're starting to run out of time, is we were talking about professional sports, but I'd actually heard about in college sports, the college players, especially college football, which, James, you're right, football is huge in our country, in the United States. And college football is basically just as big as NFL. I mean, it's almost the same intensity of fandom for college football. And none of those college students get paid for what they're doing. In fact, I even heard that
over the table.
Here's a free car. No, but I had even heard that those students who are playing also can't use their names to profit because their name is basically owned and not copyrighted, but it's owned by the whoever is the organization that runs
the NCAA
college football. There we go. Thank you. And so, like, there was, I think it might have been on the Colbert Report or Daily Show, the only two shows I watch on TV, where they were talking with a college football player or basketball player who was a rapper on the side as well. And he wasn't even making any money on it. He just made a rap video for like YouTube, but he had a friend who knew how to produce it, and like he was in a legal battle with the NCAA because he used his name in the rap.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably an isolated case, but I'm just saying we do have these professional athletes, and then sorry, go ahead.
The NCAA really wants to hold on to the rights to be able to use those names because they can make a lot of money off the video games.
Right.
They can. Yeah.
Right. A lot of money off those.
Yeah.
Well, and
not from me because I don't buy those games.
Well, and what you were saying, college athletes aren't getting paid the actual money, but they're getting that free education, which the scholarships, the books, the free travel. They're not paying for any of that. When a coach takes them out to a dinner, at the end of a game or while they're on a road trip, who's paying for that? Not them. The college is paying for that. Now, if I'd have had everything paid for in college, I probably would have totaled about $1 million just because I would have had everything paid for. Now, I don't get that. Like, that money doesn't go in my pocket, but, it does over the course of, 4 years, 5 years, if you're redshirted. You are going to be, accruing some kind of a debt to the university, which they're paying for you.
Right, but even the top universities out there, for 4 years of education, isn't going to be more than $250,000. So you're basically saying, oh well, they're getting paid a fraction of what their counterparts who are in the professional field are getting paid. You see what I'm saying?
And not every player is on a full ride scholarship. That would be impossible
not everybody,
in football.
No.
And the universities in the more popular schools make so much money, especially off the football program.
Yes.
That's normally the argument I hear, that they're making whatever millions of dollars a year on their football program or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I don't know. And then these players who are risking their health aren't getting anything. I don't know if it's a valid argument. I don't really have a solid opinion on it, but it would take some looking into.
It's
and that's
kind of
probably a whole different half of a podcast there talking about.
I was going to say it's kind of its own topic.
And, yeah.
I'll come back to that if you want.
But we are just about at an hour, basically, so I think we are going to wrap up. Ross, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. James, I'm sure, also appreciates it.
Indeed, I do.
So thank you. This was episode 21. All I'm going to say is make sure you guys like the video, like it on Facebook, like it on YouTube, retweet our links. We'll have the MP3 up on our Libsyn account very shortly, a couple of days probably, depending on how lazy I am. The video will be immediately up on YouTube. Make sure you comment, invite your friends. We will continue to let you guys know when we will be broadcasting so you can be part of the chat. I know this one was really early, so I don't really blame you. But hopefully it'll continue.
I almost didn't show up.
Is there a love it button on YouTube?
Isn't that like every show, James? You barely show up?
Yeah.
Or sleep through them?
Sorry, I'm in the middle of something. What was that?
I said or so that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let Ross go ahead and Actually, James, if you want to close with your stuff, and then Ross, if you could close up with anything else you want to say.
I just, thanks again, anyone for listening. Thanks, Ross, for coming and joining us again today. I think both the topics we went over today are bigger than the time we gave them. I don't think we have the answers. But, I think it's always interesting to talk about them and sort of put some ideas out there and see if we can at least get part of the way there.
Just thank James and Justin for allowing me to be on here today. I had a good time. They're two topics that I kind of feel strongly about. Obviously, I am a sports nut, but I also, I do pay attention to the social surroundings that I live in, because if I don't, then I'm just a zombie. And that's another podcast for you guys. So thank you guys very much, and everyone have a great day.
All right, see you guys later.